How is everybody?
Hi, I can hear you.
You
I'm
can
good.
hear me. Good. All right.
Good.
So we're getting a little bit of a late start today. The Montclair office meeting is running a little bit long, so I just jumped out of that. And I think we'll have a couple of folks joining us in just a minute. Let me get the PowerPoint slideshow going here. So give me a second here. And we will get that going. Here it goes. Can you guys tell me what you see on your screen?
The session 9, capture more leads.
Capture more leads. And then do you see me changing gears into this one here?
Yes.
Tell me something good, guys. Give me some positive mojo for a Tuesday Valentine's Day. I hope you and your sweeties have some plans. Tell me something good, guys.
Let's see. It's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day. That's a good start.
Good.
What else? We only have 3 people in the room today. I'm not sure. I guess everybody took Valentine's Day off. Plus, I know there's a lot of folks in the Montclair meeting. I think the bus is going to pull up in a few minutes here as that meeting comes to an end and people switch over. But anybody else have some positive energy that they can start the day with today? It's a trick question here. All right, I'm going to keep moving here, guys. So here we are. Do you see the daily success systems? Just want to make sure you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Do you see the daily success system here? I just want to make sure the screen is changing properly.
I do. I see it.
You got it. Okay, so here we're going to celebrate some successes. We're going to go through the 10-4 quickly today and celebrate some successes. This was last week's leaderboard. And we had a number of appointments now that are starting to kind of show up here from the activities that we're doing. And this is this morning's leaderboard. Jane Bradley, I believe, is in the Montclair meeting. She had a signed agreement this week. Kim, you're on the top of the board. How do you like that? Number of contacts in the database, connections, and handwritten notes. Now, this just was updated this morning. I think the leaderboard changes on Monday nights. So I've had to pull this pretty early this morning. So
I like it.
A lot of folks didn't get a chance to get their data in. However, how do you like being on top of that board there, Ms. Kim?
I like it. However, there was one that I didn't add, so it's actually 3, but I didn't get it in on time. So
all right. Well, you know what? We'll catch that for Thursday. All right, we'll catch that on Thursday.
Yeah.
So
here's
a couple things I just want to talk about, and it's just some program things as the Montclair meeting is winding down and people will be joining us. We have historically been meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays for Ignite at 11 o'clock in the morning. And you may have heard in the office meetings this month, Friday in Summit and this morning in Montclair, that one of the things that we're looking to do is go a little bit old school right now and kind of get back out in previewing properties as part of broker tours, broker caravans. Something that we always used to do back in the day, and we would all get together as a group. We'd go out, take a look at all the broker open houses that were being held. And, it's a great way to kind of, first of all, get to see the inventory and get to learn the inventory. It's a great way to talk, to get to meet some other agents and to kind of learn from other agents. One of the things that I used to like to do when I was the team leader in Montclair, gosh, we're going back now 8 years ago. But what we used to do is we would go on broker caravan together. We would come back to the office after it was over. We would grab lunch or a cup of coffee, and we would just kind of go through all of the inventory that we had just seen that day. And what did we think? How did we think it was priced? How quickly did we think it was going to go? What, market intelligence did we have? And many times, there were 20 or 30 agents in the room there. Many of them had been brand new agents, just seeing the inventory for the first time. Some others had 20 or 30 years of experience in the market and kind of had seen that house come up and get sold maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times. But it was just an opportunity to really get market intelligence. Well, one of the things that has been decided by your Agent Leadership Council and by the leadership in your offices is we want to get back to that old school activity of going out and seeing inventory together. And my understanding is that the days that are the most commonplace for our markets are going to be Thursdays and Fridays. Fridays and Thursdays in the Montclair market is always a big day for broker tours, the same in the Summit and Westfield office. And what that means ultimately is that when we have Ignite scheduled for Thursday at 11 o'clock, and we also want to be going out previewing inventory on Thursday at 11 o'clock, we got a problem. Because there's some really talented people on the Zoom call right now, but I don't know anybody who can be in two places at one time without pulling a muscle or something. That would just be really hard. So I think what's going to end up happening is we're probably going to need to do some readjusting of the calendars. I think what you're going to start seeing is I've reached out to all the MCAs who are coordinating these broker tour days. And I'm told that they'll be starting those very quickly, perhaps as early as this week or next. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see that we're going to probably have to move Ignite days a little bit. So watch for that. I won't do it without plenty of advance warning. But just so you know, the Tuesdays and Thursdays days are probably going to have to get adjusted a little bit so that you can go out there. And I highly recommend that you do go out and see the inventory. You go out there and meet some other agents. You'll go with a member of your agent leadership council, and a member of the leadership from your office will be going on these broker tours every single time. So I think it's just a great thing to do. And I don't want Ignite to be competing with that activity, right? So we're going to have to make some adjustments on the calendar. All right, let's move along. Here's the course overview. We are in this lead generation section here. This is the 9th module. This is called Capture More Leads. And if you remember the flow of how we're going here, we started by talking about how do you become the real estate expert in your marketplace. Then we spent some time talking about lead generation, right? We talked about how important it is to grow your database. We talked about open houses with Barbara Lewis. Last week, we talked about social media strategies. And I pointed you guys all to go back and watch Rachel Adams Lee's video in the recording library. In fact, I moved it right up to the recording library so you could find it easy, and right at the very top of that list. And go back and watch, what she has to say about using social media to grow your business. And today we're going to just talk about some other strategies. What are some of the other strategies besides open houses, besides social media, to really generate more business? And then where do we go next? That completes this module. Then we go on lead follow-up. And I'm going to tell you straight up, guys, I've been a coach and a trainer in the real estate space for a long time. We talk lead generation all the time. Lead generation, lead generation, lead generation. You guys are probably sick to death of hearing me talk about lead gen. I think for most agents, the problem that they have, the biggest problem that they have in their business isn't even lead generation. I think for many agents, it's lead follow-up. It's that we have enough opportunities that come our way, but too many of them slip through our fingers because we don't have a really good systematic way of nurturing those relationships until it's time to do business. An agent came to me the other day and asked me what I thought about paying for Zillow leads, paying Zillow to generate leads for them. And small enough group here, we can be a little bit interactive. I'd love to get your perspective on how do you feel about buying internet leads through a company like Zillow as a lead generation tactic? Anybody on the call here have an opinion one way or the other? I'll share mine in a minute, but I'd love to hear where your head is at with that.
I guess if you're buying leads from anywhere, even Zillow, I guess it's a good thing if you don't have any leads, but obviously that would be kind of the last resort. You go down your own lead capture route of your sphere of friends, family, acquaintances, and anybody you know, really. So I would think head down that route first and then use, I guess, the payment of leads as the last resort.
Yeah. Okay. So go with the relationships that you have first because you already have those, right? They're cheaper for sure.
Yeah.
Anybody else have some thoughts about paying for leads like that through a company like Zillow?
I can share my thoughts, Hal. This is Evgenia. So I was always very, let's say, negative about Zillow leads because I feel like we are paying our own competition, like really strong competition that is pushing us as the realtors out of the real estate marketplace. So I've never done it personally. At the same time, I know agents who are doing it and are doing it quite successfully. It's not a cheap way to do it, but it does work. And what I personally don't like about it is that you don't know whom you are getting, and you need to do a lot of kind of pre-selection.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's one of ways of lead generation, which is similar or comparable to other lead generation models where you pay somebody for initial lead capture.
Yeah. I think you bring up a couple of really good points, Eve. And here's the thing. I think any lead generation strategy can be good. They can be good. I think what you have to weigh out is, what am I paying for? What am I getting for the expense? The one thing that I would share with you about internet leads, typically as a rule, there's other ways that you can become much more purposeful and much more targeted in your approach. But I think generally speaking, when we look at most internet leads, we get people who are very, very high on the top of the funnel. What does that mean? Remember the lead generation model, and I don't have it on the screen right now, but you remember it looks like a funnel, like a cone. And at the very top, we're going to market and prospect to get people into our world, and then we're going to nurture that relationship over time until they're ready to do business with us. And one of the things that we find with internet leads, specifically leads like Zillow, is they get captured very early in the game, meaning that they're not really ready to do business right now. Most of the research that I've seen over the last couple of years will say that the average internet lead that's captured usually gives up their contact information in the internet portal anywhere between 18 and 24 months before they're ready to transact. So that's 1.5 to 2 years out is when that lead is being captured. And so what happens sometimes is that agents pay for those leads, they get those leads, then they try to follow up and they get ghosted because the person isn't really ready to transact. Maybe there was something that they saw in the image, they wanted to see a better view of the countertop, or who knows what the trigger was that caused them to click and to fill out their form. But so people sometimes say, well, those are bad leads. Those are garbagey leads. And the truth of the matter is there's no such thing as a bad lead. If you get a real legitimate human being and a real legitimate way to stay in touch with them, we're one of the very few businesses that everybody needs what we do. Everyone needs housing. Maybe they're going to buy it, maybe they're going to rent it, but they need a place to live. And so there's no such thing as a bad lead. The question is, are they ready to transact in a timeline that meets my expectations of what I need in my business? And so what I would say around capturing these kinds of leads is if you have a system, and that's where we're going to go next, is what's the lead follow-up system? We'll start that on Thursday. How do we nurture these relationships over time so that when they are really ready to transact, I'm still in the picture. Zillow is very quick to go out and to let people know, and I don't have these numbers exact, so bear with me on them, but to the order of 200 million leads a year they've been able to generate and sell to agents. And one of the things that we should know is that if I'm paying for that lead, even if I have paid money to have sort of a preferred share of a zip code, on average, when I get that lead from a company like Zillow, they've sold it to 20 to 25 other agents as well. And so it's not an exclusive lead. It's not just me that gets it. It's 20 other agents. But the other thing is that, they've been quick to say that they've generated about 200 million leads a year. Well, that's great until you go back and you look and you say, there are only 16 million sales last year. And so if there's 16 million actual transactions and 200 million leads generated, what does that say about the leads? It says that these are not people who are ready to transact right now. So I do think that there is sometimes a place, if you've got the revenue for it, if your business is growing and you've got money coming in and you can afford to pay for these leads as just a constant feeder source into your database that you can nurture over time in a systematic way, and at some point convert those leads when they're ready to go, I think it can work really well. And I know agents who are running some very big businesses, and spending 10, 20, 30. One agent I know spends $35,000 to $40,000 a month, $40,000 a month on generating these leads to pull them into the business so that they can nurture them over time and convert them when they come. So I guess my answer to this, because I brought it up here, because this seems to be the question that I get more and more of late as the market is contracting, is should I start paying these companies to generate these leads? And my answer is, number one, if you've got the money to do it and you can afford to do it and you can follow them over time because your systems are in place, then I think it's a really viable strategy. If any of those things are not in place, I think it's not the place to go, at least not right now. I think there's other things, and we're going to talk about what those other things are. I think there's other things that pay way better and get people who are closer to transacting business with us when we get those leads. Thoughts, feedback, comments, agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
I agree with that. I mean, I think that's the challenge with Zillow, is that you are getting these, you're not the exclusive agent. Like, it's going to, and then, having been on the receiving end of those barrage of phone calls, it's just like white noise. And it really does, to your point, it's like they could be, just at the start of their search, and, most of these agents will give up and they're not going to continue to follow up with them. But it does seem like a huge investment. You're
right. And that's what happens. Most agents get discouraged and say, look, I followed them. I called them 3 times. I called them 4 times over the span of 2 weeks, and they didn't follow. And so I'm really agitated and I'm going to let these leads go. You gotta have a different mindset if you want to work with these kinds of leads, right? Anyway, that said, what are other things? And thanks for that, Brooke. What are some other things that really work? Here's the agenda that we have for today. We're going to talk a little bit about systems that we know work. We're going to talk about prospecting strategies versus marketing strategies. And there's so many different ones out there that you can explore. We're going to talk about referrals and the gold mine that is referral business. We're going to talk about other sources to get leads through things like special events and lots of other geographic farming we're going to talk about today. And so let's just jump right into it, right? We're going to start with this quote right here. And this is a quote from Gary Keller. And would somebody unmute and read that for me? Small group today. There's nowhere to hide. I think there's only like 8 of us in the room today. So
I'll read it.
But at the same time, you haven't yet learned to love hunting for them.
You love people, but at the same time, you haven't yet learned to love hunting for them. That's a quote from Gary Keller in the book Shift. I think the language in that is very telling. I think one of the things that we think about in the language that we use, and when we talk about hunting for leads, here's the truth. Nobody likes to be hunted. Nobody likes to be hunted. And if you think about in the wild, if you think about sort of the big cats out there that do hunt their prey, the wildebeest is not particularly happy the day the tiger shows up. And believe me, they're going to fight to the death. And it is ultimately a fight to the death for one of them. And what you'll find, if you really have any interest in studying around this, what you're going to find is most of the time, these big cats are hungry because it's so much energy and effort to actually capture your prey and actually kill it, because it's not going down easy. The language of hunting for leads is one that I want to reframe, because I think that just implies people are going to try to run from us. And that's the perspective that I think a lot of us have. And what I would rather do is think about ways that we can create enough value that we attract people to us. We love people, but at the same time, we haven't yet learned how to love attracting them into our world. I'm going to rephrase that quote a little bit. And you know what? Gary can come and hit me if he wants to, but I'm going to rephrase that. Here's where we're going to start. The number one part of our job is to get in the pathway of what? Motivated buyers and sellers. To get in the pathway of motivated buyers and sellers, right? And that's my concern sometimes with these top of the funnel internet leads. There's no such thing as a bad lead, but I'm looking for people who are more ready to do business right now. And so how do we do this? First thing we start to think about is the 2 M's of lead generation. We think about what is the message And what is the method that we're going to use to get out there? Let's start a little bit with message. One of the things that businesses have to get really clear on is, who are they trying to reach? I heard a trainer, I was in a training program myself over the weekend, and I heard the trainer describe it as trying to find who's your avatar, right? Who's your ideal client avatar? What do they look like? Where are they located? What problems do they have that I can solve? And the challenge that so many businesses have is they don't really have clarity on who it is that they're trying to attract. They go with this perspective that anybody who's willing to do business with me is somebody that I'm trying to attract. And the problem with that approach is that it's really hard to craft a compelling message if you don't really know who you're trying to reach and what's going on in their world that would cause them to respond to you. So first thing we have to think about is, who's your market, right? Who is your market? Who's your avatar? This one right here. And what do they need to hear to get us to respond? What problems do they have? And then the next thing we have to do is we need to make an offer to them. And we need to make an offer to them that causes them to respond immediately. That's what we're really looking to do. So for example, let's just think about a kind of a message. Let's say you're looking to attract, oh, somebody just popped into the waiting room. Let me let them back in. Let's say you're going to attract a seller, a potential seller in your marketplace. What kind of a marketing message could you put out there into the ether that would perhaps cause them to respond to you? Anybody take this? A very general question, but let's just throw some things out there. What kinds of things have you seen people do to try to get a response? Anybody?
I would say, there's a couple of things that I think. One is just, people are hearing in the news that the housing market is starting to slow down, and prices are coming down and market is cooling. So that's certainly not what we're seeing locally. So just
not at all.
Letting people know that the window of opportunity hasn't closed. There's a lot, and I think the other challenge that I keep hearing from everyone is just that, well, great, I can get top dollar for my house, but where there's no inventory, so I have no place to move to. So yeah. How does that work? How do I list my house and get it sold, but at the same time I don't have a place to move to? And then the third challenge, I think, is helping them strategize to figure out, because a lot of these people, there are a lot of people that don't need to sell in order to purchase, but I feel like there are more people that do need to sell in order to purchase. So then that's the big challenge of how do I get my offer accepted if I have it contingent upon a home sale? So kind of helping them strategize and work through those things.
So Brooke, let me unpack some of what you said here. So you've identified your market right here, right? These are people that are looking to sell. They maybe want to sell, they may need to sell, but they've got a problem, right? Their problem is A, they don't know where they're going to go. B, they maybe need to sell their house first, or they can't afford to go, and all those different kinds of things. So we've identified the target audience and what their issue is. Mm-hmm. Now what we have to do is provide a message to them that lets them know that we have solutions. Mm-hmm. And what could a message like that sound like?
I think, just saying that, there are, I guess it's, figuring out what everybody's obviously financial situation is different, whether they, right. Have the opportunity to maybe do a home equity loan in order to have the money available to do, for the down payment on their next home. And then they don't necessarily have to make their offer contingent upon a home sale if they're comfortable with that. Or it could be, a leaseback scenario.
Yeah. So there are lots of different scenarios. One of the examples that came to my mind when we start thinking about making offers to get people to respond is in our coaching program. I'm
Mhm.
working with a lot of agents right now who are working with buyers.
Mhm.
And one of the things that's causing buyers such grief right now is affordability, right? Is interest rates are up. And it depends who you talk to, whether they're going to stay up or whether they're going to come down. And if I knew the definitive answer to that, I would be sitting on the side of a mountain in white flowing robes and not sitting in front of my computer teaching Ignite. People would be coming to hear the sage, and I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is this: there are ways that we can take some of the pain out of the current interest rate environment. One of those ways is through what we call a mortgage buy down. And if you were in the office meeting, either in Montclair this morning or possibly last Friday, you heard some explanation of how these buy down programs work, that with a concession on the seller's part, interest rates can be as low as 2 percentage points lower. And so what we talked about in the coaching program is how do we target a message to buyers to let them know that they could get mortgage interest in the range of about 4%. Right, let me just mute who's talking right here. Not sure who that is.
I'm listening to Hal's Ignite since I'm not
Yeah,
home
we're
to
gonna go,
watch it.
Nancy, you're on, your mic is open. We're gonna ask you to mute that. So here's the deal. So we know that you can get, with a mortgage buy down program, you could get mortgage interest at about 4%. If you were a buyer at 4%, does it make more sense to consider instead of 6%? And so simply what we did is we texted that message out to our database and said, we know that you're, I don't know whether buying a home is in your plans for this year, but would a mortgage interest rate of 4% make that more possible? Ask me how. That was the question. That was the ask. Here's the offer. Would a mortgage interest rate of 4% turn you into a buyer this year? Ask me how. And when that text message went out, we had a number of people that said, I don't know how to do a 4% mortgage. They engaged around that conversation, and then we could talk to them. Right. The idea was we thought about the message that would be attractive for them to get them to make an immediate response. And we put it out there and we asked them, to reply back. Now, the method, the second part of this M, is message first and then it's method. The methodology is important because depending on who your audience is, certain types of methods are going to be really good to reach them and others not so good. You have to really have a sense of who is this client avatar. If you're trying to reach my mother, I can promise you social media is probably not going to be the best way to do it. She's 93 years old. She hasn't been on the tickety talk ever. And you're not going to get her there.
Come on.
If you want to reach my mama, you're probably going to have to call old school from a rotary dial telephone. She won't understand you. And that's how you get my mom. If you want to get my daughter, that ain't the way to do it. You could call my daughter and she doesn't pick up. You've got to text her or you've got to Instagram her. That's how you communicate. So when you know your client avatar, this is the real important thing. And this is where so many businesses struggle, is they don't have a real clear sense of who it is. And then because of that, they don't have a really good sense of what is the message that I need to say and what's the channel to get it there. When you have clarity on those two things, your lead generation changes wholeheartedly. It changes completely. So number one thing we're going to ask you to do is kind of get out of this idea that anybody who has a pulse who's willing to work with me is the client I want. I want you to be more selective so that you can really create the ability to attract people and not have to hunt them so much. Give me some thoughts around that. Do you have the clear avatar of who you're looking for in your business?
Anybody.
And where are they? And
Anybody,
what problems do they
anywhere.
have?
Anybody, anywhere. Hey. Hey.
Say that again. My microphone is very low today, so I'm listening very intently. All right, so let's keep moving along here. So there's leads everywhere. Here's the model. The 3-step model is sort of approach, connect, and ask, and we're going to unpack this a little bit. The first thing that we recognize is that if we really are listening and tuning in, there's opportunities everywhere. There is this thing that we call the reticular activating system in our brains. Oh my God, what is the RAS? Here's what it is. It's the part of your brain that pays attention to things that are important to you. If you've ever bought a new car and noticed that when you drive home from the dealership, you recognize 3 or 4 or 10 other cars, exact same make, model, and color, as the car that you just purchased, and you never really noticed them before. They were always there, but once you buy that car yourself, your brain is paying attention, and it starts to have you notice the things that it believes are important to you. That's the way our brains are built. And if we're listening, if we're out there and we're constantly not just going through our days with our earphones in and being oblivious, you're going to hear opportunities everywhere. And so, for example, you're in a coffee shop and you hear someone overhearing a couple talking about an open house that they just visited. What would you do? I'd love to hear some folks thinking about this model: approach, connect, and ask. How would you approach a couple at a coffee shop who's just talking about an open house that they just saw? Or maybe a property that they viewed online?
I would approach it by asking them questions. What did they think about the house that they just viewed? Did they like it? What did they like about it? What didn't they like about it?
So Kim, you know what? I love it. And we're in the connect phase here. Let's think about the approach though. How are you going to go up to them and kind of introduce yourself to have those kinds of questions?
I'd let them know that I'm Kim Harvey from Keller Williams, and introduce myself like that. Is that what you mean?
I couldn't help but notice. I was here getting my triple frappuccino with a double mocha twist, and I couldn't help but overhear you talking about an open house that you just visited. Ironically enough, I happen to be a local realtor, and I'm just curious: are you in the market to purchase a home? Right? Introduce the approach, and you want to think about, how am I going to do that? And once I get there, then I do want to ask those kinds of questions, right? That we build rapport by asking and listening. Tell me, have you been looking for long? How many homes have you seen? Lots and lots of questions. And then ultimately, what's the big ask here? The big ask here would probably be something along the lines of, how can I help you? Right? This happens to be an area that I know really well. It's my market area. What can I do to help you in any shape or form? One of the things we just have to constantly be doing is being alert to the opportunities that are out there and being comfortable approaching folks, connecting with them, and then asking how we can serve. And that's just a comfort that comes with time, perhaps for some, but that's something that's really, really important if we're going to continue to grow our business, right? Okay. I want to keep moving along here. I'm going to skip right through this aha, and I want to talk a little bit about prospecting and marketing, because I think those are really both very, very important parts of lead generation. It's both prospecting and marketing. Who wants to unmute and just read the Gary Keller shift quote here on lead gen?
I'll read it.
I'll do it.
Okay, whoever.
Lead generation is a contact sport with simple rules. It means making contact with people through prospecting and marketing.
All right, lead generation is a contact sport, and it has rules. And here's the rules. We're contacting people through two approaches, prospecting and marketing, and they're both aspects of lead generation. I think a lot of times when people think of lead generation, they think of one or the other, but they're both, and they work in tandem with each other. Our marketing is designed to support and strengthen our prospecting efforts, and our prospecting is designed to give us an opportunity to think about our marketing message and how we need to tee it up. I think about it like I think about gardening. My wife and I love gardening. We do a lot of it. And I think about prospecting as sort of planting the bush. And I think of marketing as preparing the soil in many ways. Marketing is the things that we do to kind of make the environment receptive to our message when we prospect. And we've got to do both. And we're going to unpack different strategies for each today. But here's the deal. You've seen this graph before. You've seen this graph before, probably in session number 1. These are the kind of the waves pattern. The likelihood of making a move is on this continuum, and time is on the bottom. And at the top of the arc here is when they actually do move, and then they go right to the bottom. And they don't need us again for a period of time. And NAR says that average is about 7 to 10 years. And we're always looking for people here, right at the very top, just before they're getting ready to move. That's who we want. But do we market to people at the bottom of the arc here? Do we engage people at the bottom of the arc? Of course, right? Our job is to meet people wherever they are, get them into our database, nurture that relationship over time so that we're with them, because all along here, we're going to talk about referrals in a bit. Even though they're not ready to make a move, the average person knows between 8 and 10 people a year who do move. And so there's an opportunity there for you as well. So just keep this vision, this model in mind. We're capturing leads everywhere and we're nurturing them along the way. Now we talk about being prospecting based and marketing enhanced. You know, prospecting is sort of cheaper. It just requires an investment of your time more than your dollars, right? It's typically can give you more immediate results. It's very proactive. It's the investment of time, whereas marketing tends to be a little bit more passive. It's more up to other people to decide whether they're going to make that response. When we make our offer for an immediate response and we send a text that says, would a 4% interest rate make it easier for you to buy a home this year? Ask me how. It's still up to them to take the step. But we need both, right? So let's start with prospecting. Lots of different things that people can do. Let's just talk about all the different ones on the list here. Phone or face-to-face prospecting. What's your preference? What's the benefit of being face-to-face versus the benefit of being on phone? Each one has its benefits and each one has its drawbacks. What's the benefit of face-to-face? Anybody? Face-to-face prospecting versus telephone.
Face-to-face, you feel the personal connection. You feel the energy. You're able to make the eye contact with the person. And I really love face-to-face because it's the way for me to kind of find my people, meaning the ones with whom, who respond to my personality.
Yeah.
And with whom I have this natural connection.
Yeah.
Through phone, if that's the cold calling, I personally find it, for me, much more challenging than face-to-face.
I think most people would agree with you on that. I think the thing about face-to-face is that it just feels more natural and it's more enjoyable. Human beings are wired to connect with faces. Social media, the big social media platform is called Facebook for a reason, because the human beings are wired to respond to faces. In fact, there's been research that shows if you're sending a text, even a smiley face emoji will cause a different reaction in the receiver. Just because they saw two eyes and a little smiley face, that connection activates different parts of the brain. Face-to-face communication and contact is always more engaging and more powerful than only the phone. However, the phone gives us a lot of leverage. It's faster. If people don't answer their door, I've got to walk down the sidewalk to the next house and go to the next door. Whereas if people don't answer the phone, I just dial the next one. It's more leveraged in the phone. What I have become a big fan of recently is leveraging video text messaging as a way of getting the best of both, where you can simply open up the camera on your phone, and every one of us has a phone that has a camera, and on that camera there's an opportunity to record a video, and you just press the button to turn that camera to you and you record a message. And it's something that says something like, "Hi Eve, it's Hal, we're sitting here in Ignite and I'm so glad that you could join us. I hope you're getting some value from this class." And we record that 15-second video, and then we send it by text to someone who then gets the visual of your face in that message. By the way, that kind of communication is still cutting edge. That is something that the technology has existed for years for people to be able to do that, but nobody does. And if you want to separate yourself in your business, the separation point is doing things differently than other people. And I would encourage you to play with video text. I think you'll have a really, really different response from folks. But the strategies In face-to-face versus phone, we know that we can work with listings without agency. What are those? Those are the people who we know they need to sell and they don't have representation. Those are the for sale by owners. Those are the expired listings, right? Those are people that we know already exist at the bottom of the funnel. They're the people that exist at the very top of that arc where they're ready to move because they're trying to, or they did try to, right? Those are great folks to prospect. Circle prospecting, where we kind of draw a push pin in the middle of a map and we say an event happened here at this point in the map. Could have been an open house, could be a recent sale, could be a community event of some sort, and we draw a circle around that push pin and we talk to people inside the circle about that event. That's called circle prospecting. And we circle prospect neighborhoods around recent sales. We circle prospect apartment complexes, recent sold listings, recent listed properties. I do think it's a great idea to think about circle prospecting around events. And I hope that all of you are going to come to Westfield tomorrow and hear my friend Nicole Romnick, who's going to come and teach how she built her business. And she built a very big business. She's a friend of mine from up in the Ridgewood office where I had been for 8 years as a trainer and coach up there. She's built a very big business on community events. And one of the things that you can do is find an event that's going on and circle prospect the neighbors to just let them know about it, right? To let them know about it. But circle prospecting is a great prospecting strategy. Community outreach, getting involved in charities and volunteer work is another way to meet people with shared values and shared belief systems and start to get more people into your network. Key relationships, partnering with builders and banks and investors and what I call gatekeepers, right? I love to think about who else is in the pathway of people that need to move and how can I build a relationship with them? An example might be an estate planner, right? An estate planning attorney. Many times when someone passes away and they need to think about handling that estate, there is a property that needs to be sold. And so if I can partner with an estate planning attorney who is involved in people's lives at a time when there may be a real estate transaction, that's the kind of key relationship here. I have another friend of mine who's going to be coming in March to teach a class. She's not coming, she lives in San Diego, but she's coming by Zoom to teach a class on how she built a massive business working with divorce attorneys. Because when people oftentimes uncouple, they have real estate needs. And she found a way to position herself in relationship with those divorce attorneys and become their realtor of choice in those scenarios and build a massive business. And she's going to be in Anaheim next week at Family Reunion talking about it from the stage. And she's going to come and do it for us in March because she's a friend of mine and she's going to do it. But these are the key relationships, right? Think about who else do I need to get into a relationship who can introduce me or put me in the pathway of people that need to buy or sell. This is one we're going to go deeper on a little bit today, teaching and speaking opportunities. And if you were with us last week when I launched a course called Follow the Models, where a couple times a month, I'm going to share with you a best practice model of something that somebody is doing in the country at a high level to grow their business. The first model that I shared was the first-time homebuyers seminar model. And that recording lives on the recording library. You can go back and watch that if you're so inclined. But getting in front of people through teaching opportunities is a great way of prospecting. A door-to-door canvassing, networking events, getting a booth or a kiosk at different events. I know that towns sometimes have community fairs. Here's a good one. I have a friend of mine who would always take a booth at the Bridal Expo in Somerset at the Exposition Center. I think they do that in June or something like that. And she would always have a booth because who shows up at the Bridal Expo are brides and couples, young couples who are getting married. And what do young couples who are getting married need? Oftentimes, they need a place to live. And so she always had a booth there. And that was really smart, right? Where else could I be and to get in front of folks, right? Walk-ins, not as much anymore in this day and age. There's limited markets where we get walk-in traffic where people come into the real estate shop. a real estate office to talk to an agent. They usually do that online these days. But these are just some of the many ways that you can prospect. And is there anything that is not on that list that you can think of? Another strategy for prospecting that's not on there? One of the things you have to think about is what's our comfort zone. Go ahead, Kim. You were going to say something?
It was Brooke.
I'm sorry,
The
Brooke.
third party, it's okay. I might have missed this. The third party data companies. Do you have an example of what you're talking about there?
Third-party data companies like Likely.ai or Coles Realty, who can provide lists of people, Likely.ai, who use predictive analytics to predict who is likely to move in a certain geographic region. You give them a list of addresses, and then they scrub that list against their algorithms to help uncover who they think is likely to move. Right? That's the kind of idea. The thing we have to think about is what do I like to do? And what am I willing to do? And not every one of these things is going to be the right one for you, right? I know plenty of people who just can't wait to do networking events. And I know other people who hate the idea of networking events. I know other people who love to work for sale by owners and expireds and love the challenge of that. And I know other people that would rather get hit in the face with a brick. I mean, it's just, we have to know ourselves and know how we're wired and which of these things are things that fit for me. Because look, there is a truth out there that says that the magic happens on the outside of your comfort zone. You've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You really do. There's no question. One of the biggest things that causes us to not grow is that we're not comfortable enough stretching outside of our comfort zone. And yet, while that is true that we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, it's equally true that the magic, while it exists outside of your comfort zone, it almost never exists outside of your skill zone. I learned that from John Maxwell. John Maxwell is one of the great leadership coaches and trainers of our generation. And I happen to do coaching for his organization as well. And what John says all the time is you got to be willing to get outside of your comfort zone, but you can't get outside of your skill set, because then you're uncomfortable and you're not that good either, right? So you got to decide which of these things do I think I'm going to be good at that sort of fit into what I know, what I do well, what I'm comfortable doing, and lean into those, right? That's the way you want to think about that. Now let's look at the marketing side. There's a lot of different things that people can do from a marketing standpoint. Radio and television are coming back a little bit right now. You may have seen at a recent office meeting, probably 2 months ago, when we had representatives from 72 Sold, who will take your listings and they'll put them out on the network television right now. And for, it's not cheap, right, to do that. But I know a handful of agents in our market centers who made that investment to market themselves on television. There's lots of different ways to do that. Newspapers, most of those have gone digital these days. I think my wife might be one of the very few people that reads the newspaper cover to cover every single day. People do, and she's one. I probably have way more newspaper recycling than anybody else because she reads paper every day. But you could you could personalize your vehicle and wrap your vehicle. I know several agents. William Barraza, who is in the Montclair office, he's got his car wrapped. That's great marketing and advertising. Somebody asked me recently what I thought about taking one of those bus stop benches and paying money for those. And again, all of these things make sense if they're part of a comprehensive plan, right? We think about, what does marketing do? It starts to prepare the environment so that when I prospect, I'll have better results. And so if you have an opportunity to have your advertising in a bus stop or a supermarket or somewhere that is going to be seen by the target audience that you're trying to reach, the avatar that you're trying to get in front of, and they see you again and again and again, right? We see billboards, another way to do that, right? We all have seen a million times, I buy your homes guaranteed, right? We have our Remax friend who's on the billboards. And all of that's designed to just kind of create a brand awareness so that when you show up doing your prospecting, you'll have better results. Online advertising, pay-per-click advertising, search engine optimization, social media. I think these are way underutilized today. I think learning how to target your avatar on social media through a campaign, and come to the classes when Ron and Cheryl and Diala teach you how to create campaigns using your Facebook account through command. But when you can figure out who's the avatar that I'm trying to reach, what's the message that I want them to hear, and we target them using a campaign, what we can then start to do is when people respond to that campaign, we can retarget them again with a different campaign. I'm going to send this message out there to 10,000 people. And if 50 of those people click on my message, my belief system is that there's something in that message that was attractive to them. They're the 50 that I'm going to send my follow-up message to. That's called retargeting. And we do that through social media. Very, very, very powerful technique to learn how to do that, right? Great marketing stuff there. Broadcasts, radio shows. I have a friend of mine who has a radio show every Sunday morning. She's on a local AM radio station. Now you start to say, well, who listens to that at 7:30 on a Sunday morning? I don't know exactly what the distribution is, but she's one of the very top agents in Bergen County, and she gets business from it.
I don't have any
Direct
sound.
mail, all these different things, lots and lots of things. People say direct mail. Should I do it? It costs a lot of money. Well, be thoughtful about it. Is anybody familiar with everyday direct mail through the Postal Service and how that works? Everyday direct mail is a less expensive way to do direct mail, where you're not paying first-class postage. You have a specialized piece that goes out to every single person on that letter carrier's route. So you can sort of say, I want this route and I want this route because they fit into the geographic area that I'm trying to break into. And everybody on the route is going to get your postcard piece. And those are the ones, interestingly enough, that are the odd sizes. When you go to get your mail some days, and there's some of these postcards that are in there that are like the size of a placemat, where you could literally take and put on your dining room table and sort of eat dinner. They're that big. Those are the EDDM postcards, everyday direct mail it's called. And they're delivered at a fraction of the cost. But they're a shotgun approach to every single person on the route, which means some of them it's going to be relevant to, and most of them it's not. Or you can use one of those third-party data companies and start to really refine the target avatar that you're looking for. And printing companies like who's the Minuteman Press, some of these other printing companies that print postcards, they'll help you create these lists. You can go and say, I want everybody in the zip code of this zip code. I want everybody to start out this list. Then I only really want to think about people. Maybe my avatar is somebody who's downsizing, right? And selling their house after the kids have left. So I start with everybody in town and then whittle that list down to people who have their youngest child is 18 years old, let's say. My assumption is that the youngest child is now off at college. Now I want to whittle that down to people who've lived in their home for maybe more than 6 or 7 years, going by the NAR's belief that the average person moves about every 7 to 10. I just use the third-party data companies to refine that list, refine that list, refine that list, and then I pay full postage cost only to those people. Everyday direct, everybody gets it. It's not relevant to the most people. Refined list, my message and my methodology is relevant to this group. It's just not as big a group, but both of those things are ways to think about, direct mail. Just listed and just sold cards. We've been doing that in this real estate space for years. I think incorrectly, quite honestly. I think one of the things that does happen is we tend to use the just listed, just sold card as kind of a personal victory lap. I just sold your neighbor's house. I had success in doing so. I want to tell all the neighbors, because if they're ever thinking about selling a house, clearly I've been successful at doing it. I must know what I'm doing. You should call me. That's the way that we tend to use them. And I'd say if you're sending those direct postcards, those just listed, just sold postcards into a market area that you are consistently trying to break into, you're consistently starting to farm. We'll talk about geographic farming in a minute. But if they're going into a neighborhood that I'm trying to get in front of, I've got my kiosk at the supermarket in that neighborhood. I've got my bus station banner in that neighborhood. If you're sending a postcard into that neighborhood, it's going to continue to reinforce preparing that market for your marketing. But if you're going into kind of a one-off environment, I sold the house in Parsippany. Parsippany is not really where I'm looking to do my business. And I send a postcard into Parsippany, and it's the only thing they've ever seen from me that one time. It's the return's going to not be useful. The conversion rate is going to be too low on a single one direct mail piece. What I think is better with direct mail like this, just listed, just sold cards, is to send those to your database of people that you're going to be in touch with 33 times a year, 50 times a year. Make some of those touches a half a dozen times a year a postcard. And it may not be in a town that they live in, but they know you. And so they're going to get that postcard and they're going to say, huh, Jane Bradley just sold another house. Wow, I happen to live in Tenafly. She sold the house in, pick another town, Montclair. It's not really relevant. The town isn't relevant, but Jane's relevant because she's my friend. Look at her. And then a couple months later, another one. And a couple months later, another one. Just listed, just sold cards to reinforce inside your sphere that you're actively doing business is a great use of those kinds of marketing pieces. But a single direct mail piece into a neighborhood, not so much, right? Promotional items, swag, right? Some agents have their sort of little swag stuff. I have a friend of mine who gets these little pinchy clips that you use for potato chip bags. And every year he gives those out to people in his neighborhood, right? Whatever. News releases, advice columns. You would be surprised how often, if you ask, a lot of these news outlets like TAP or The Patch or these local digital outlets are always looking for somebody to write an article on a topic. You know, and if you volunteer to be that source of information about what's going on hyper locally in your community, that's a great way to kind of get your marketing message out there. Guys, I think one of the things I really want to stress, though, is that in today's marketplace, marketing is education. It's education. That's what people want to consume. Gary Vaynerchuk, who some of you may know, VaynerMedia empire that he's built on the back of his family's wine business, wine library, but just an internet celebrity at this point. But Gary's been saying forever that the best way to market is to educate people. And I truly, truly believe that. And whether we use the channel of blogs or the channel of radio shows, or we use the channel of direct mail or news releases or advice columns or social media, if we can provide information to people that show that we've got expertise and knowledge, that's amazing marketing, right? What other things do we not have on the marketing thing that you could think of that people could do? And then the trick is, what would you be comfortable doing, right?
Volunteering, is that on there?
And look, there's some of these that do both, right? Prospecting and marketing. Geographic farming involves both, you know, prospecting and marketing. Demographic farming. Anybody know the difference between geographic farms and demographic farms?
You're targeting people based on like their age, their marital status.
Exactly. Geographic's where you live, where the house is. Demographic is something unique about your age, your gender, your nationality, whatever. Those are demographics. And you could farm those. If I'm trying to, if my avatar is very specific in their demographics, then I'm going to try to farm those folks. Events, special events. Come to Westfield tomorrow and listen to Nicole talk about this. Right, special events, but open houses we touched on, seminars we're going to touch on again in a minute. Go back and watch the Follow the Models episode. I gave you a step-by-step model on how to set up a homebuyer seminar. Contests are great. How could you use a contest, an event as a contest to grow your database? Anybody familiar with what's called the Bold 100? When we who are my Bold graduates? I'm wearing my Bold shirt today, I think. Yep, I am. Here's my Bold shirt. Bold is one of our coaching courses, and it stands for Business Objective, A Life by Design. That's what these letters stand for. And one of the things that we do in Bold is we try to talk to 100 people a week, right? So in Ignite, we do the 10-4. 10 people a day, 5 days a week. We're trying to get 10 conversations. In bold, it's 20 conversations. It's 100 a week. And sometimes what we do in bold is we do what's called a bold 100, where we have 100 conversations in one day. Now you think about that and you're like, man, that's hard. How am I going to do 100 conversations in one day? Either you get up really early in the morning with a targeted list of people and just start working it, or you put yourself in a very leveraged environment. Ironically enough, some of the agents in our last Bold series found that one of the best ways to get to their 100 in one day was to go to the Home Depot and talk to people as they left the Home Depot in the contractor's entrance and exit, because a lot of people who were buying building materials were flippers, and they would be able to walk with them to their car and approach, connect, and ask. Remember that strategy? Approach, connect, and ask. And they approached them and they connected with them and sort of said, hey, I see you're buying lots of stuff here, sheetrock or whatever it is. Are you building a new home? Are you an investor? And they would just walk to their car and have those conversations. But so the contest would be, how could you create a contest where people would actually call you, approach you, instead of you having to go out and approach them? And one of the very resourceful people in our last Bold session took the coach Clint Shea's advice and did what's called a reverse Bold 100. How could you get 100 people to call you every day? And what she did was she had a contest. And the contest raffled off a Peloton bike, not cheap, not a real cheap item, but she took about 6 weeks and she put that contest out there through social media and all the different channels to be entered into the raffle to get a free Peloton bike. You've got to fill out this name, address, and telephone number. By the way, all of that went into her database. How many people do you think filled out the contest application to win the Peloton? Thousands over 6 weeks, thousands of people that called her to see if they could get. And so you get 1,000 new people in your database. Is that worth the investment of a single Peloton bike? Oh, and by the way, if you partner with your lender or your, your lender or your home inspector or somebody else, and they all chip on that bike together, and they all get access to those names, is that something to do? Those are all different strategies. And probably in the follow the models later on this year, we'll talk about that contest model as a way of getting you to grow your business, right? And then you can just buy lists, right? You can purchase lists, right? But there's prospecting and marketing. There's all these different things. Let's stop for an aha here, because there's so many things. Any ahas in terms of sort of stretching your mind a little bit and thinking past this idea of simply cold calling strangers, and think about all the myriads of things you could do? Any ahas here?
The aha is there are so many creative ways besides Zillow to do the lead generation and spend money if you, yes, you
many ways. So many ways.
But I'm thinking about $30,000 per month, right? And if we scale back and we say, okay, we have the budget per month because our business is the business, and every business has the marketing business.
Yeah.
So what am I ready to set up per month specifically for my marketing and promotional, but probably start marketing expenses? So you have helped me to think about it as the necessary part of my business. And for some, it can be $100 per month. And in this case, it can be just being on social media, doing something for free. But for some, it can be $1,000 per month. If I generate 1 or 2 transactions from these, that's less expensive than me paying 25% referral fee to another agent.
Yeah,
so
for sure. For that. For sure. There's so many things. And, back to that $40,000 a month investment in Zillow Leads, this is somebody that I know that runs a big expansion team, and they've got agents in 16 different cities in the country, and they do thousands of transactions a year. This is not a small team. In fact, when we were sort of one time looking at the business plan, and we've talked about how many listings do you need to take every year so that you're on pace to hit your goals each year. And then you take that goal and you break it down to, all right, then how many do I have to do this month? And then how many I have to do this week? And for many of us on this call, we have, much more modest goals. We don't have representation in 16 cities. Well, this particular agent team, in order for them to hit their goals, they needed to list one property every 46 minutes of every business day in order to stay on track. And when you've got that big of a business, the way you think about marketing is very different. But we have to think about it at whatever size our business is, because we've got to do both. We've got to prospect and we've got to let the marketing help us and create leverage for that. Referrals, I don't want to spend too much time on the referrals because we talked about these in other sessions, right? But remember the value of a client referral and make yourself more referable, right? What the thing about referrals is we've got to teach people how can they create a referral for us? What should they do? We automatically assume that if we let people know that we're in real estate and we ask them, hey, if you come across a lead, would you send it my way? We automatically assume, number one, that they will, and number two, that they know how. And that's probably a mistake to assume that. We have to teach people sometimes specifically what action do we want them to take. And we want to kind of create the culture in our database. And we talked about this in session 4, I think, creating the culture of constantly generating referrals. And we want to reward those referrals when we get them, right? We shape the behavior that we want to see. And so when somebody does give us a referral, we want to thank them, and we want a handwritten note goes a long way, but we want to maybe a Starbucks gift card or something like that, right? But we definitely want to keep focusing on referrals. What you're going to find is the agents who are really doing high-level business, this is a big component. It's the idea of saying, look, I know that on that wave pattern, it might be 7 to 10 years before you need me again. However, if I can constantly come and add value and provide things like my preferred contractors list. There's a realtor that works in the condo complex. I own an investment property in Greenbrook, and my daughter lives there. I did have to buy a house for her to move out of mine. But that's my problem. But anyway, here's what happens. Every 2 years in a condo complex, you've got to have the dryer vents cleaned. That's part of the HOA rules. And so one of the things that my friend, who's an agent who works in that complex area, every 2 years, he reaches out to all the homeowners and says, look, do you have a contractor to clean your dryer vents? They got to be done by April. And by the way, I've got a relationship with this particular company. If you use them, they're going to give you a 15% discount. Those are the kinds of things that create value. He knows that, A, I'm an agent. He's probably never going to get my business. But he also knows that if he can continue to add value, at some point, people are going to reach out to him for other things and refer him with other things. How do we do that? How do we constantly create that value so that we're more referable? And the same holds true with other agents. Agent-to-agent referrals is a really important part of our business. Who do we know, or who could we know, that could complement my business? For example, if people who tend to move into my community, let's say Westfield, where I happen to live, if it's commonplace for people to move to Westfield from places like Brooklyn, or from places like the Upper West Side, or from places like Pick a City, might it make sense for me to get into a relationship with an agent who's doing business in that area so that when they sell that property, they can refer them to me and I serve them on this property? And conversely, when people leave my community, where do they go? And might it make sense for me to build a relationship with people there? That kind of agent-to-agent referrals, if it's done purposefully and intentionally, can really lead to a lot of business. And guys, it's the same kind of a model, similar to approach, connect, and ask. Here it's grow, maintain, and manage. How do I grow that network of agent referrals? How do I maintain communication with them so that I stay top of mind? And how do I manage their needs when they come up, right? How do I keep them up to date in what's going on in my market? Has anybody seen the agent referral module that lives in Command? Has anybody ever seen that? Because we do have the ability in Command to research out where migration patterns are in the cities that we're in and connect with agents in other markets. Has anybody ever seen that? Let me ask you a different way. Would it be useful for me to stop the screen here and jump into my Command account and demonstrate that?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Stick with me then. I'm going to need a minute to get my Command account open. So give me a second while I stop the screen share and open up my Command account. While we're doing that, if anybody knows any great jokes or stories or would like to sing a song, I would be welcome.
Ironically, I just was, I got a text from an agent that helped with selling my dad's house down in Holmdel with like clearing it out. He like does house clean outs, and then he also is an agent. So ironically, he texted me, he's like, send me some buyers down here.
I just logged into my Command account. I'm going to share screen again, and it looks very different. You know, what's happening right now is we're just a week away, a few days away from Family Reunion. And Family Reunion historically is when they roll out all the new goodies with Command and things like that. So do you see my Command account here? What do you see on your screen?
Yes, we see your Command. Welcome
Okay,
home.
good. Now here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go right up here to the red KW and open these up, and you'll see all the different applets here. I'm going to go now to the referrals applet. And I'm going to click on that. And here's what's going to happen. This is where it shows my network of people that I have referral relationships with. And apparently I have 9 people who want to be my referral partner that I've not responded to. Shame on me. I should go do that. But here's what I want you to do. Here, you're going to go in and you're going to click on this map icon. And this is really cool, guys. Because we are such a big company and because we use Command in large measure to track the opportunities that we've got, and we use Command, even if you're using a different CRM, which some agents may choose to do, they're putting their deals into Command in order to get paid in their market centers. And so all of these transactions are things that we are having a lot of information about inside of our system. We're the largest real estate brokerage company in the world. 1 out of every 5 homes in the United States last year was sold by a Keller Williams agent. Just wrap your head around that for a minute. 1 out of every 5 homes was sold by a Keller Williams agent. The volume of transaction inside this Command account is massive. So we're going to start with the map. And here's what you do. You see where it says production? Do you see this little drop down here? Mm-hmm. I'm going to go for this really cool thing that's called referral patterns right here. And when I do that, it starts to say, okay, let's take a look at all of the transactions that are associated with the city that you're in. And let's take a look at where people are moving to, and let's take a look at where people are coming from. And for some reason, mine just happened to default to Ridgewood, New Jersey. At one point, I had an office there when I was KW there. So let's just go with Ridgewood since it's here. You see outbox and inbox here. These are referrals going out, and these are referrals coming in. And so when people are going out of Ridgewood, where do they go? Well, you look here on the right-hand side, here's the top couple of cities. They leave Ridgewood to go to New York, number 1. They go to Morganville, New Jersey. Now, would you have ever guessed that? People moving from Ridgewood to Morganville, New Jersey? Metuchen, number 3, Stanford, number 4. You go through here and you start to say, okay, is this a city that I might want to have a referral partner in? If people tend to leave Ridgewood and go to Sarasota, Florida, might it make sense for me to get into a relationship with a great agent in Sarasota? So if people are doing that, I've got somebody there. I think so, right? Yeah. Or conversely, where are people coming from? Let's go to the inbox. When they're moving into Ridgewood, where are they coming from? Well, they're not moving far a lot of the time, but it may be Garden City, New York might be a place for me to develop a relationship, or Scarsdale, New York, or the Bronx, or Trumbull, Connecticut, or Rochester, Minnesota, right? Who knew? You start to think about these and say, okay, maybe I want to grow my network because people moving into my market are coming from Trumbull, Connecticut. Maybe I want to have a relationship with people in Trumbull. So how would I do that? Well, now that I know I'm looking for Trumbull agents, now here's what I do. I go back into the map and I look for agent production. And I click that. It's going to open up a new view on the map, and I want agent production where? In Trumbull.
Hal, I'm so sorry. I was trying to find what you were doing on command at the same time. And
Okay.
I think I didn't see where or what did you press to see Ridgewood, like moving in and out of
I
Ridgewood?
started
Where
with
was it?
referral patterns here, right? I went to
Oh,
production
referral
patterns.
patterns. Got it. Mhm.
And when I went to referral patterns, it just so happened that mine defaulted to Ridgewood.
Okay.
And I could change that to another town. Here's the thing you're going to find. If you have a town that's really obscure and there's no Keller Williams transactions that have been done really in that town, you're not going to get tons of data.
Mhm.
We are the largest real estate brokerage in the world by a mile, but we're not the only one. And this is only Keller Williams transactions that are in this database of command, right? But that said, we defined Trumbull, Connecticut as where I wanted to find a referral partner so that when somebody is selling in Trumbull and want to buy in Ridgewood, or the other way, yes, they're coming from Trumbull to Ridgewood. So what do, I go back in here, I change to production, and I type in Trumbull. Here's Trumbull. I started it here, Trumbull, Connecticut. And now when I do that, it's going to open up a map. And here's Trumbull. And on the right-hand side, it's going to start showing all kinds of agents. It's a little bit slow. Here we go. And you'll notice that it's sorted randomly. This is a random sort, and I want to be more purposeful. I'm looking for what kind of an agent. If somebody is leaving Trumbull to move to Ridgewood, I'm going to be the buyer's agent in that transaction, and they're going to help them sell their house in Trumbull. So I would probably be looking for a strong listing agent. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to, instead of sort this randomized, maybe what I'm going to do is sort it by listings sold. And I click on that. And now it reorganizes my list here. And give it a second. And here's Matthew and then Sandy. All these listing agents here are sorted top to bottom by listing sold. Now I could go a little deeper here. I could go on this filter and say, you know what, maybe I want people who only had sold at least in the last 12-month period. Maybe I want to see they've sold at least 6. And I'm going to put that filter on. And now my list gets updated, and it goes from 661 names to something new as it's calculating, and my map is doing it's the map thing. It's down to 82. And so maybe I want to start to say, well, this guy Matt was on the top of the list before. Let me check him out. I'm going to go on the page here. And I click on his name. Then it takes me now to Matt, where hopefully Matt has put some information into his command account so that I can learn a little bit about him. And it's a little bit slow right now because I'm running Zoom and I'm running command and I'm doing all kinds of things here. But give it a second to spin. And we'll tell stories and we'll sing songs and maybe have a little fun time here while we're waiting for that. Ultimately, what's going to happen, hopefully, is I'm going to get a page here that's going to give me more details about Matt.
Hal,
My point here is this is how I go back and do some research. Go ahead, Eve. You have a question?
I don't have any great stories or jokes. My apologies. But what
That's all right. We still love you.
Well, thank you. What I already was able to search, because I do work with a lot of Russian-speaking and Ukrainian-speaking realtors and do a lot of volunteer for this, that what you showed me is worth so much because I didn't know that it exists in command.
Yeah.
I'm able to search right in command agents who speak Ukrainian or Russian or Romanian. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
So good. And now here's the thing. Here's what I do want to show you because it hung up there for a minute. But let's go back now. Are we back on the map here? And do we see Matt here?
Yes.
If let's say I want Matt to be in my referral network now. So this little button is how I'm going to add him. I'm going to click on this. And it's going to then send an email invitation. Would you like to send an invitation to Matthew to be part of your network? And I'm going to type in, hey, Matthew, I understand you happen to speak Ukrainian. That's really important to me and my client base. I'd love to be a referral partner of yours. Hit send information. It's going to go to his command account, and he's going to be able to accept you as a referral partner to send business back and forth to. That's really cool. And now let's say you actually have a lead to send. I'm going to click on this little button right here, and here's how it's going to go. I'm going to click on it. Hopefully my screen opens up. Come on. Here it comes. Do you see this? This is where I actually place the referral. And what do I do? Is it a buyer lead? Is it a seller lead? Is it a tenant, landlord? This is where I can set what's my referral fee going to be with this little slider here. How quickly does he need to get back to me? Right? Is there a price range perhaps that is relevant to this transaction? Any specific notes? Now here's the kicker. The highlighted message will be kept confidential until this referral is accepted, which means the name of the client, first name, last name, address, telephone number, where they want to live, email address, all that stuff. They don't get to see that until they do what? They accept and agree to pay me my referral. Once they've done that, then they get to see the goods. Man, this is an amazing tool. This is an amazing tool. And if you know the migration patterns in and out of your market, and you've got great referral partners in the corresponding markets, and you get purposeful about managing those relationships, you're going to find an opportunity to do more business, right? Is this cool? Was that worth the little detour?
Absolutely.
Detour there?
Thank you so much. Thank you,
right.
Hal.
We aim to please. Let's see if I can get back into the PowerPoint. Not 100% sure I can do that right now, but let's see. If I can go here, and here's my stop that screen share. And I'm going to go back into this screen share. Cross our fingers, hit the slideshow button one more time from this view, and let's see what happens. Are we on the worldwide referral page?
Yes.
Drop the mic. Technology works. Hooray. All right, so look, don't be so expand your thinking a little bit. There's a lot of buying and selling that happens in our markets with international buyers. There's a lot of money that's coming into this area from other countries. And it's smart to think about, do I have relationships in other areas? Keller Williams, in 2022, we had a presence in over 50 regions in the country. And I just saw an email 2 nights ago that we just opened up Keller Williams Germany. And so that's, just another place where you can start to think about relationships. If you've got people who are traveling and wanting to maybe buy in another country, do we have relationships in those countries that we can connect people to? Constantly be thinking bigger would just be really what I'd say here, right? Constantly be thinking bigger. Oh, and by the way, I'll tell you a great downline story, a profit share story. When we think about bigger, an agent friend of mine who was in one of our offices, who got her license largely to be an investor herself. She didn't really ever want to do a lot of buying and selling. And right now her license is in referral. But she got the license because as she flipped a couple properties a year, she wanted to represent herself in that. She was Turkish. And a friend of hers back in Turkey was a real estate broker, owned a company there. Well, a number of years ago, probably 10, close to 10 now, Turkey was one of the very first companies where we created a worldwide presence. And she happened to have a relationship with somebody in Turkey. And he was interested in learning more about Keller Williams. He heard about the culture and he heard a lot about the values and he wanted to learn more. And he came to one of our family reunion events and really was jazzed up about this company and chose to convert his brand to become the second Keller Williams franchise in Turkey. And here's the cool thing. When he did that, he had about 120 agents in his company. Every single one of those agents, because of our profit sharing model, every single one of those agents named him as their sponsor because The only reason why they came was because he changed the company to a Keller Williams franchise. The guy now has 120 people in his downline. How cool is that? Oh, and by the way, my friend who introduced him, the broker, to Keller Williams, named her as his sponsor. And so now my friend has her friend on level 1 of her profit share tree and 120 agents on level 2. Oh my goodness. That is a real thing, right? Constantly be thinking bigger. And by the way, I see Jane Bradley here right now, and I will follow up with you later today on an opportunity that you presented to me to help build your downline. Working real hard on that, right? Always looking for ways, guys, to help you grow your downlines. So keep thinking about that. Business to business referrals, we'll touch on it real quickly. Think about those partnerships that you have with providers who are out there in the public, your hairdressers, your barbers, your dentists, your doctors, whoever, you know, who are out there talking to people. Do they know how to refer you when the opportunities come up in their lives, right? Think about those. And we touched on that before. Any ahas? I think the KW command thing was a big aha. Any other ahas in this little section before we start to close the door here on the last two things? If not, let's move. Here's where we want to go. More sources. Let's talk about geographic farming. I am a big fan of geographic farming. We think about what farming is. It's not something that's immediate results. Farming is what it sounds like. We plant a crop, we nurture the crop over time, we tend to it, we weed it, we water it, we feed it, and over time, it produces a yield. It produces a response. It's not a flip a switch. There's only one time in the history of mankind that I'm aware of, at least, where we get immediate response from farming. And that was Jack and the Beanstalk. He planted one little magic bean and the thing took off up into the clouds and we found the goose that lays the golden eggs. But that happened one time only. Most of us have to do this kind of slower, more deliberate thing. But here's the thing I want you to get at a high level here. This is critical. If you look at the most successful agents in any market area, they tend to work a tight niche. They try not to be all over the map. They try to work inside of a tight niche. If you look at the top 10 agents in the Garden State MLS, and these are largely teams at this point, and some of them are expanding out because as the market is contracting, they are having to go further out to keep their unit volume where they want it to be. But what you're going to find is the top agents do 40, 50, 60% of their business in just one zip code. They don't try to go all over the place. They try to get bigger market share in a smaller niche than small market share in a bigger niche. And that is just a really smart way to do this. You become the market expert, but you can't be the market expert about everything. You've got to decide where are you going to pick a lane. And I'm a big fan of geographic farming. And so once you've defined what area, how are you going to get yourself out there? Through social media, through conversations with people, through open houses and events, all designed to happen inside your geographic area so that you can kind of create that presence, right? You're going to do your direct mail primarily inside of this geographic area. You want to become the mayor. We talked about that in the database section. You want to be seen as the mayor of your geographic farm. And here's the kicker. With the area where you become known and you become an expert, you have better results. It's absolutely true that the number one agent in a defined market usually delivers better outcomes. Their houses sell faster. Their houses sell for more money than agents who don't do a lot of business in that community. But here's the thing that's really remarkable. Because I'm a bit of a data geek. When you really dig into the data, here's what you find out. You take the number one agent in town whose list to sell retention is the best and their days on market is the best, and they have the best outcomes of any other agent in that town because they're the expert in that town. You take that exact same agent with the exact same tools and the exact same marketing plan, and you move that agent into maybe their 5th, 6th, or 7th most popular town that they do business in, right? It's not where they're the number one expert, but it's where they do some business. They're just not doing as much. You take that same agent, you put them in their 5th or 6th town, you know what happens in their numbers? Their numbers become statistically average. They're no better and no worse than anybody else. And that's the thing that's really amazing, because we get so caught up in, look how special I am. Look at what I've achieved. I'm the #1 agent. I got the best list of seller retention. You take me and you put me in an area where I don't know, where I don't do much volume. I don't do as good anymore. It really does come down to being a hyper local expert. So pick carefully, where do you want to be? And this is going to be a commitment. You know, you're gonna marry this community and you're going to be a part of it. So pick a place that you like, pick a place that's convenient, pick a place that the price point makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish in your business. Pick a place that has enough transaction volume that if you get a percentage of it that makes sense for your business, that you're earning the income that you want. You don't want to become the king of a tiny, tiny little market, but you really want to sort of be thoughtful about this. Geographic farming is one of the most critical decisions I think that agents have to make after their database plan, which is critical, right? My database is my business. But after my database, I really want to get clear on what geographic area am I going to look for new people. That avatar that I'm looking for, they're going to be living in where? And the more I focus on that, the faster my business grows. And then finally, events and seminars, we touched on that before. I think this is a great way to get in front of, in a leveraged way, more people all at once. And I think you can do these in person. I think you can do these online. And there's a time and a place for both. But what would be the event that I would want to do? And what information would I want to convey in the seminar? And how do I make sure that I have an opportunity to do these so that I'm out in the public and I'm making an impact in my community? And come tomorrow to Westfield and hear Nicole in terms of what she does with events, because she crushes it. She absolutely crushes it. But events and seminars, I think, in many ways are taking the place of open houses in a lower inventory market where there's not as much inventory to hold open. I can do a community event. And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine called me the other day and said, look, I'm looking for some ideas of just trying to find more people to get into a relationship with in my target area. And what she decided to do was to do a Shred It event. And that's a cool event, right? You call the Shred It company that has those big portable trucks that shred up all your documents. She made arrangements with the municipal pool in the town because there was no pool going on right now in January or February. And they made arrangements for the truck to come on a Saturday morning from 10 until 2. And you could bring 2 boxes of stuff and you could shred up your documents. And she pushed that out through social media. And if you want to come, please register for the event so that we have enough shredded trucks or whatever. And she captured their contact information of people that lived in the geographic footprint of where she was trying to meet people. And that was just how she did it. A million different ways you can think about events. Nicole's going to give you some great ideas tomorrow. But really, I think we have to be purposeful about adding these into our calendars, right? As a way of growing more clients, more business. So with that, leads are everywhere. Grocery stores, coffee shops, every place you could think of. It's not just picking up the phone and cold calling strangers. It's how do I think of all the ways I could prospect? How do I think about all the ways that I could market? How do I get real purposeful about that? And think about what is the avatar? Who am I trying to reach? What's the message that's going to get their attention? What's the methodology of how to get that message in front of them so that I can make an offer for them to respond when? Immediately, to call me now. Would a 4% interest rate cause you to think twice about becoming a buyer? Ask me how. Oh my God, I want to know how to get a 4% interest rate. I'm going to respond to that text. Oh, and by the way, if it's a video text, even cooler. There's so many ways we can do this. So with that, we're going to call for some ahas and we're going to wrap this up. We'll get you out 20 minutes early today. Any ahas on today's topic?
I think it's like energizing. I think there's like, I think it's a really discouraging market right now. And there is not a ton of inventory and not a lot to show buyers. But I think we sometimes get tunnel vision of like, this is how we normally do things. And I think it's just like kind of opening your eyes to say like, okay, let's just look some other places. And
You got to look other places. And look, do not be discouraged. Don't. I listen to people who are imparting information, and sometimes I want to go shoot myself because I'm like, listen, the information is fine, but the doom and the gloom that sometimes people reject, I don't have any need for, because here's the truth. Here's the absolute truth. I was in the Montclair office meeting today and I saw the numbers. Howard Bunn went through the numbers. And I believe that while the chart showed that in the month of January, we had the lowest number of closings that we've seen probably in a few years. But it was still 1,662 in the MLS. And so unless your business plan required you to have 1,663 closings in the month of January, there were enough. The question is not, is there enough? The answer is yes, there is. The question is, what am I not doing so that I can get on that list? What would have had to happen that didn't happen for me to be one of those 1,662? And how do I go back and do that? What marketing piece is not happening? What prospecting strategy is not happening? Because there is business out there. Do not allow negative Nellies in your world who will tell you the doom and gloom. Oh my God, there's no point in even trying. It's just so hard. Stop. There's a wonderful video. Anybody Bob Newhart fan? Anybody love Bob Newhart? I think what I'm going to close with today, instead of playing some out music, I think I'm going to share with you one of my very favorite Bob Newhart videos. And it's about just stopping. Just stop it. There is plenty of business out there. We have to think differently. And if we think differently, we prospect differently, we market differently, we're going to get our unfair share of the pie. Let other people complain that the sky is falling. I don't have any time for that. Give me another aha while I cue up Mr. Newhart, because I love this one. Any other ahas for today?
I like both the Peloton bike, that contest. I thought that was great.
Oh, that reverse bold 100, man, that was clutch. And
how did she advertise that?
That takes some time and some planning. It's not something you do in one day, right? You got to get a compelling gift that people want to compete for, right? There was a question around that.
I said, she advertised that on Facebook, or how was that? Okay.
Well, she advertised it on Facebook. She advertised it in her own sphere, but she got the word out there. She got thousands and thousands of people to apply.
And then the other one was the shredded. I thought that was a great idea. I would have never thought of that. So they're both really
things. You could do pet adoptions. You could do you could have your very favorite real estate photographer come and take family portrait pictures or pet pictures. Have them take pictures of their pets, because people love that pictures of them. But there's so many things you could do to get people to raise their hand and come out. And they're not necessarily real estate related. It's sometimes we do seminars because we want to impart information and we want to let people know that we're truly the expert. And sometimes we just want to do something fun and bring people out. And sometimes somebody else is doing something fun and we just want to circle prospect and let people know about it. By the way, did you know that at the Oak Ridge Park, we're having Family Fun Day on Saturday? There's going to be face painting and all these other things. It would be really fun to come be part of that. Why not? Why not? All right, here's the deal. Last thing for today. Bob Newhart, one of my true idols. With that, let's park the bus here. Anything else for today?
Thank you, Hal.